This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now from Studio B, your hosts, Jarom Jordan and Jason Shepard.
BYU Sports Nation is live. You're getting the play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It is Wednesday, February 9th. Great to have you. And I'm Jarom Jordan, teamed up with a guy who did not shave his head yesterday, Jason Shepard. We thought that you might.
That is correct. I did not shave my head, nor do I have plans to shave my head.
Why not? It's super cool.
The BYU baseball team, not everyone, I'm going to say that, but the majority of the BYU baseball team, they got together and they decided to go with the buzz cut. They shaved their heads. Okay. And because I'm at practice on Monday and I'm noticing, I'm like, oh, he's shaved his head. Oh, there's another. Whoa, there's a lot of guys that shaved their head.
Do we know why? Is it a team?
It was sort of a team building, but they said a lot of it was just the fact that peer pressure mounted, and everyone's like, well, if he's doing it, I'm going to do it. And then, well, if I'm doing it, you should do it. And so it just kind of, at least that was the explanation I got.
It wasn't some greater cause. It was just peer pressure.
So I did ask one of the players who did not shave his head. I'm like,
yes.
so how come you did not?
Yes.
He's like, well, there's a couple of reasons. One, I didn't want to. Number two, my significant other didn't want to, and that should probably be the number one answer is what he said. And he's like, three, actually, it really doesn't matter. Number two is probably the real reason is my significant other didn't want it. I have a feeling there's probably quite a few of those that didn't. Their significant others like, you know what, I'm going to say you don't do that.
Never gave Whitney the option in 2015 for me. Here's your show lineup. Chaos in the West Coast Conference last night. Wow. 2 upsets that have shaken up things. We'll discuss what it means for the Cougars' hopes of being a top 4 seed in Las Vegas. ESPN Sean Farnham on what's up with Cougar Hoops now, what he thinks BYU can fix right away. Mark Pope reads mean tweets. LOL. This is good. You got to watch it. And a conversation about jackets. Time for some headlines.
BYU football ranked 23rd in the newly released SP Plus preseason predictions. This ranking, if you're not familiar with it, is based on returning production, recent recruiting, as well as recent history. And here's a fun fact for you. BYU and Utah both rank as the 11th best returning offense. How about them apples?
I do like apples, green ones specifically, but yeah, that's some good stuff. Top 25.
You're a tart apple guy.
I'm a green apple guy.
Okay.
I used to live in the apple state.
I'm a golden delicious, so more of the yellowish.
Granny? Is that the brand?
No, but that's more tart.
Oh, that's more tart. Okay.
It's more tart. But
Tartar or tartar sauce?
No, I do not like tartar sauce because I hate seafood.
Fish and chips? What? Tyler Algier is headed to the NFL Combine March 1st through the 7th in Indianapolis. Algier made the list released by the NFL today. He's one of 36 running backs on the list among 324 prospects.
Yeah, good luck to Tyler Algier. After missing Saturday's game against Gonzaga, senior guard Tejon Lucas was back at practice on Tuesday. Here's what head coach Mark Pope had to say.
Yeah, so T, we wouldn't let him practice today, and he just begged and begged and begged to get in practice. Yesterday, we wouldn't let him practice, and he just begged to get in practice today. So, as part of the agreement, there's if you know the Merritt Center court, there's 4 tunnel exits, and there's moments right now where I think Tejon feels semi-disoriented still, and so I assigned Caleb Lohner to make sure that he didn't wander off during practice into some random part of the arena. So otherwise it went really well.
So I can confirm what Coach Pope said. I was at the last 25 minutes of practice, and as far as I could see, Tejon Lucas did not randomly leave out of an exit.
I didn't know the injury. Was it a concussion then, based on that comment? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we all sort of assumed it was something like that, but we had never heard anything specific. But yeah, so it was certainly good to see him practice. He was in good spirits. He was laughing, joking. Cougars, big one at LMU Thursday night. Take a nap. It's another late one, 9 o'clock Mountain Time tip.
When are we going to report if someone's in bad spirits? We're like, you know what? They were in bad spirits. It happened, finally. Hey, like start a fall camp. You know who's out of shape? This guy.
You know who
no
really,
one put on 10. He didn't put on 15 pounds of muscle. 15 pounds of fat.
Just throwing some truth bombs.
Nope, we're not going to do that. Jaylen Gonzalez named to the midseason team for the Naismith Trophy Women's College Player of the Year. How about that? Gonzalez has scored in double figures in every game but one this season. One of 3 players from mid-major conferences to be included on the team. Not for long. The semifinalists will be named on March 8th.
Women's golf won the Texas State Invitation on Tuesday thanks to Anik Hutchkevich's 5-under for the tourney to win the individual title. The Cougars have now won 3 of 5 events so far this season.
Not bad. And Yoli Childs finished with 20 points, 12 rebounds, and the Salt Lake City Stars' 1-point win over the South Bay Lakers. Always good when the Jazz beat the Lakers in any form. Childs is averaging 14 points and 9 boards this season in the G League. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
Who are we? It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
What's Trending is presented by BYU Food To Go, the MVP of your next event. West Coast Conference chaos last night. Things got shook in the league. Portland took down San Francisco by 1 on the road. And Santa Clara beat number 22 St. Mary's at home by 5 for its first win against a ranked team since 2004. Okay, then. Shep, after what happened last night, do you think BYU is going to get a top 4 seed in the West Coast Conference Tournament?
I am feeling a whole lot better about the situation after what I saw last night. Now, look, a lot of this is not in BYU's hands. The only thing BYU can control is winning their games. They have 5 games remaining. I think at minimum they win 4 of them. So I think BYU is going to put itself in good shape because I think they're getting on a roll towards the end of the year. Obviously, the game at St. Mary's, that's the one you kind of look at and say, okay, well, now let's see what happens in that game. But the thing that BYU doesn't control is of the 5 games they have remaining, 4 of them are against teams that are ranked below them. So they're not gaining ground.
9th and 10th.
Yes, by getting the win. So they are relying on the teams that are ranked ahead of them to lose. Last night was a great step in the right direction. Here's the other thing that should make every Cougar fan even more optimistic about BYU getting into the top 4 and keeping on climbing. All of these teams that are ranked ahead of BYU all have to face each other the rest of the year. So if you're Santa Clara, your remaining games for Santa Clara, on Saturday you're facing San Francisco. You still have to go to Gonzaga. So there's opportunities for losses one way or the other there. If you're St. Mary's, you have the hardest schedule here because you still have to face Gonzaga twice. You are
in USF.
Yeah, you face San Diego, you face San Francisco again. So all of these teams are still facing each other. So whoever wins, somebody ranked ahead of BYU is going to get another loss. So as long as BYU continues to win, and I think they will, teams are going to drop down who are currently ranked ahead of them. So I'm very optimistic of BYU getting into the top 4.
Somehow it'd be nice if BYU got the 3. Seems like St. Mary's still going to get the 2. We'll see. But Santa Clara is sneaky, man.
Yeah.
Like you talked about. Santa Clara has 2 games. Maybe they beat San Francisco. If you can win against St. Mary's, you can beat San Francisco. You're not going to beat Gonzaga, of course, which is crazy. But, Santa Clara might be a top 3 seed here. They have snuck into this conversation, which is tough news for BYU. If you're looking at BYU's at-large chances, feels like BYU's the 5. They're not actually probably going to be in, barring some crazy thing, because they're going to be on the wrong side of the bracket. They're going to be on Gonzaga's side if you're the 4 or the 5. Doesn't feel like 2 is realistic. So the 3 is the one that's like, can BYU somehow get to the 3? You got to win all 5 games probably. And then, like you said, there are, and you did a nice job of outlining that, of the teams that BYU doesn't have to play, and that the others do.
Yes.
BYU has played the hardest schedule in the conference so far in terms of playing those top other 4. I don't include San Diego in that conversation currently. I do with Santa Clara. Santa Clara's top 100 KenPom. Like San Diego is better than we thought, and they're ahead of BYU right now. They're ahead of BYU because of who BYU's played. Okay. And now think about this too. If BYU hadn't lost let's say BYU lost Santa Clara game, but didn't lose against Pacific, BYU would still have 4 losses, and BYU would be tied for 4th. San Francisco. It'd still be a dogfight, and it will be down the stretch. But what happened last night certainly shakes things up because the real deterrent here to me is obviously Santa Clara coming in, but it's San Francisco.
Yeah.
The fact that BYU lost both, they lose that tiebreaker as well. BYU's got to be a game ahead of San Francisco to be above them. Well, actually, they don't, because assuming the league goes to KenPom adjusted win percentage, they won't be tied.
Right.
It won't be as easy to tie.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, that's the thing. BYU, though, still has to win. At the end of the day, if you're going to put yourself in a position where the other team's losing means something, you've got to keep winning.
Right.
So,
it's assumed winning, and then you need the right shakeout.
You know, and it's good that of the 4 remaining games, obviously you're going to face Pepperdine and you're going to face LMU twice. You're going to get them, obviously, this week on the road, and then you're going to get them at home. Those should be 4 wins for BYU.
Yeah, no, if you lose one of those, then you're done.
So,
you have to win the
So
WCC.
you control what can happen to a certain point in terms of you can go out. All you can do is go out and win your basketball games.
Sure.
But you know it's not a well maybe. You know the teams that are ranked ahead of you currently are going to lose games. So there's going to be some of them that come back towards where BYU is currently. So I think the chances of the Cougars moving into that top 4 spot changed significantly with the results of last night.
And if BYU wins out and gets the 4 and gets to the semis and lose to Gonzaga, they got a shot.
Yeah.
They got a shot. Here's the good news, because we're looking at the 3 seed as well. Okay, that's the 4 situation. If BYU's the 5, it's just tough. I'm not sure BYU's making it if they're the 5. Okay, in the WCC, it's not gonna be a 4-bid league. I don't think it'll be 3. I think 4 have been in contention, but that'll probably be 3. They're gonna eat their own. That's gonna be the Pac-12 in football. You don't produce a champ that goes to the playoff because there's too much parity. Parity can be good. It can also be bad. I think there'll be too much parity in the Big 12 in football as well. I don't know that a top 4 playoff team will emerge because there's too many good to very good teams, right, in there. So let's talk about that 3 seed. You're trying to get that 3 seed, get to that semifinal, get a quad 1 neutral game on Monday night in the semis. That would be amazing. Feels like a stretch, but here's the good news, which is our stat of the day.
It's the BYU Sports Nation stat of the day.
3 seed the last 9 years has had 5+ losses, okay? BYU's already at 5. So if BYU wins out and has 5 losses, they would, be in historical contention for the 3 seed. Now, St. Mary's has 2 losses right now. I think they're going to lose a couple more. They could end up with as many as 5.
St. Mary's is going to lose 2 more for sure because they face Gonzaga twice.
Santa Clara, if they only lose to Gonzaga and they win out the rest, they could be the 2.
Yeah.
Or the 3.
Yeah.
Like Santa Clara's the shocker. San Francisco's down to 4. They have to play Gonzaga. So they're going to equal BYU's 5 at least. They also play at St. Mary's. So where they led but lost by 23. San Diego has St. Mary's twice, USF still. San Diego's going to get out of the way, I think. And then BYU's there. Hopefully BYU's not the 5. If BYU can get at least the 4, they have a shot. They have a shot. Okay, resume update. Hit the music. Net, 46, stays the same. Ken Pom, 46, stays the same. Again, you want to be top 40 to feel like you're in the mix, even though Lenardi has BYU still in, right? Bracketology, 12 seed. 4th to last in. Waiting on some updates there. Team rankings, down 3% to make the tourney. It's a quarter chance, right? Bracket matrix in 107 of 120 brackets. That's all good. Just feels like BYU's hanging by a thread here and has to win and then hope that it shakes out well. I think either way, we're going to be a little nervous on Selection Sunday. I
would agree with that, and that's why you finish the season strong. You go into the WCC tournament, you put yourself in the best position possible in terms of your seeding, and then you win a game or 2 minimum.
And then you've won 6 of 7 or 7 of 8.
So I don't know if Greg's mentioned this I know he's mentioned it on the radio broadcast. I don't know if he's mentioned it on television. Greg Wrubell, obviously, is who I'm speaking of.
When do you say Greg?
I assume that, but
Greg
sometimes.
Greg Cougar Club as well.
He's mentioned that 23 win mark is the one that he's kind of looked at for BYU to feel really good about getting into the NCAA tournament.
5 more wins.
Getting to 23 wins, he thinks BYU's in a really good spot. That's kind of the number he's looked at personally.
I want to say bracketology agrees.
So that's kind of where I think we kind of look to where BYU can be from a win-loss situation.
Okay, Greg feels 23. Okay, that is a 27% chance from team rankings. 24 wins is 53% from NCAA.
So it's considerable change.
And then 25 is 86%. So if BYU could get to the championship game, essentially, if BYU, it depends how many games you play in the WCC tournament. But if BYU wins 5 games, they get to 20. They're 18-7 right now, or is it 17-8? 17-8.
17-8.
The 23 mark, 6 wins. Yeah, you got to win 5, and then you got to win 1 game in the tourney at least.
Or you win 4 or 5 to end the regular season, and then win 2 in Vegas.
Yes, but you'd probably be a 5 or 6 seed. And
It's true.
And you're not an at-large if you're a 6 in the WCC tournament.
No,
I just, you can't just isolate that number per se. You have to look at the whole resume, but I go, No.
See, and I do not, and I realize I'm saying this as they currently sit as sixth in the standings.
Right.
They're not finishing sixth.
I don't think so either.
BYU is not finishing sixth in the WCC.
It's third, fourth, or fifth.
Correct. I agree 100%.
That opinion is correct.
That is correct.
Our question of the day: after last night's West Coast Conference upsets, do you think BYU will get a top 4 seed in the West Coast Conference tournament? Let's hear from you.
This is the voice of the nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Cougar Chaps on Twitter. Yes, it's chaos in the WCC. I'm reading it with the caps yelling, right? Just what the Cougars needed to remind them that winning out in the regular season is possible. We love Coach Mark Pope and go Cougs. Hashtag BYUSN. It's totally possible. This team's not trending in the right direction. My hope and prayer is that it can change as quickly as it did the other way. That it was this 8-day, 10-day whoa, that maybe in 8 to 10 days we're going. Remember when BYU beat LMU, Pepperdine on the road and St. Mary's? Boom, back in it. Let's go. That's the hope.
By the end of Saturday night, BYU could be in a completely different situation in terms of the standings and where
100%.
where they would be seated in 2 days.
Yep.
It's crazy how quickly things can change. And
anyone that has been in a relationship can know that in 2 days things can change dramatically as well. Right?
Yeah, that is correct. All right, coming up, we talked about the chaos last night at the WCC. Which was the most surprising result?
Are we doing the countdown? No.
Look, I'm happy to do a countdown. I'm never going to pass a countdown.
We are not.
Okay, we are not. So what was the most surprising loss of the ones we saw last night in conference?
And Sean Farnham of ESPN tells us why he thinks BYU can turn things around and what's going on with the Cougs. This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by BYU Food To Go, the MVP of your next event.
Quick crack. Wash all you want. Don't drive dirty.
BYU Food To Go's convenient location at 2191 North Canyon Road in Provo makes bringing popular BYU foods to your next event easy. Everything's ready when you need it at the drive and load pickup. You drive in and they load no matter the weather. And stop in the on-site creamery for great BYU chocolate milk and ice cream. BYU Food To Go, bringing campus to your table. Call for details, 801-422-5001.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Family comes in a lot of shapes and sizes. With 4 corgis, there's never a dull moment in our home.
Boots was born with 2 very special front paws. Just because he was born different doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a chance. For him to be able to run freely would be life-changing.
If I put this wheel in the front of him, then he'll have a lot more stability and balance.
Derek's help in this journey, it's truly a dream come true.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
BYU Basketball with Mark Pope is available on demand. Watch this week's episode as Coach Pope talks about how BYU looks to snap a 4-game losing streak. Plus, Deep Blue features Tijon Lucas's journey from Milwaukee to Provo. It's available on demand on the BYU TV app.
He also read mean tweets, which we will show you coming up. He brought these in on his own. Greg didn't know. Hema didn't know, the producer. So, yeah, that's fun. We're live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Jarom Jordan. He is Jason Shepard. ESPN Sean Farnham, one of the top voices in college basketball and friend of the program. He's seen BYU play several times, including Saturday against Gonzaga on ESPN. Here's Sean talking with Spencer yesterday about what's up with the Cougars and how they turn it around.
Sean, it's always a great day when we have you on BYU Sports Nation, so we appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to help us address some things that, frankly, we're really confused about. We look at this BYU basketball team. 2.5 weeks ago, they were pacing to be a 7 seed in the NCAA Tournament. They were for sure going to be one of the top-tier teams in the WCC, probably finish second, and yet here we are. Now they're one of the last 4 teams in and very much on the bubble. What changed over the last 2.5 weeks for BYU?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tough stretch. You know this. This is not what this program is used to. In fact, the last time the Cougars lost 4 consecutive games in conference play was back in 2005, and they were definitely not part of the West Coast Conference at that point in time. So it's uncharted territory, especially since their arrival into the WCC. I go back to that game against Santa Clara, the buzzer beater at the end. There was multiple opportunities for BYU to close that game out, and they left the door open, and they allowed Santa Clara to come through. And when you lose a game like that, sometimes there's a residual impact. And I think we saw that against Pacific, where it was almost like a no-show. Like they thought like, okay, well, that was an aberration and we can put that one over there and we're going to be perfectly fine. They weren't. And they lose that game. And then you've got San Francisco and Gonzaga, who are both NCAA tournament teams, coming into your building in a place where Mark Pope in particular has had a ton of success protecting. I thought the loss of Lucas was huge in that game, based on the fact that he's the best ball handler at the offensive end, and it allows and slides Alex Barcelo into more of a scorer's role than having to bring and initiate the offense and then still become the scorer and try to balance that. And then you lost your best perimeter defensive player as well. And I think that was a huge problem for them in that game. And I don't think it makes a difference. They ran into a buzzsaw that night. And obviously Chet Holmgren was outstanding, and the lack of length underneath kind of once again reared its ugly head. But the concerns I have right now, you look at this 4-game stretch, has been the amount of turnovers. BYU averaging about 15.5 turnovers per game over the last 4. Yeah. They actually have a negative plus minus on the glass. And that's just not a recipe for success. Now, their schedule was front loaded. They're done with a majority of their big games that they have left. They have 4 games remaining against Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine. I'll be on the call on Thursday night. That game against LMU. These are must wins for BYU, and they should win. They should win all 4 of those games. Both of these teams, Pepperdine and LMU, have been struggling in conference play, and BYU should be able to get right a little bit there. The onus then becomes on that game at St. Mary's, which I also have, and I'll be on the call for that game. And that becomes almost a must win if they want to secure their berth prior to showing up in Las Vegas. And I think it's important when you look at this team to realize some of the positives that they've seen. Gideon George, I thought, was great outside of the foul trouble that he was in, obviously, the other night, 14 points in 18 minutes. I thought Foose, late in that game, without Chet on the floor, started to regain his footing as far as how he could be successful and understand, hey, I can't score the ball. Chet Holmgren's just a different dude, and my length isn't going to be good enough to score over the top of him, which is a fact. It's not subjective, it's objective. And then you start looking at other guys and start going, okay, are they going to get right? I will be very frank and honest that Caleb Lohner has been a massive disappointment for me this year. Because of my own expectation of him. And maybe Mark feels differently, and I'm sure he does. But I thought Caleb was going to be a first-team all-conference caliber player. And he is really, really struggling, in particular at the offensive side of the ball. What I did like of what I saw the other night was that he grabbed 9 rebounds. And he should be grabbing 9 rebounds every night, especially given the fact that they're shorthanded and small on the interior. With his athleticism and size, he needs to be a more efficient rebounder. He needs to be a more effective rebounder. He needs to go get the ball. And he should be averaging about 9 rebounds every single game right now for BYU. And down the stretch, that would be my focus with him, is stop worrying about if you're scoring, stop worrying about your 3-point shot. Just go rebound the ball and defend for us. And good things will happen because you start to simplify the game. But the way he was playing down the stretch, when the ball hit his hands, I was either anticipating a missed shot or a turnover right away down the stretch, in particular of that Gonzaga game. And he needs to just go back and watch some feel-good film. Like we used to do this at UCLA all the time, and they call it a feel-good video.
Yeah.
And the feel-good video was just like, hey, this is you at your best. This is what you can do. You've proven you can do this. Can we get that out of you again? Like, you don't stop worrying about what you can't do or trying to prove to people what you've developed or what you've worked on, and just get back to being a dominant, athletic, strong player. That in particular in the WCC, again, I will go back to it. I still believe his best basketball's ahead of him, could be a first-team all-conference caliber player. And if he does that down the stretch, that takes some of the pressure off of guys on the outside. Obviously Nell has not shot the ball as well this year as he has in previous years. And it puts more and more on the shoulders of Alex Barcelo, and to the point where it can't all be on Alex Barcelo. Other guys need to step up and alleviate some of that pressure that he feels, and allow this team to start to find success. And it starts with two areas: valuing the basketball,
yes,
and rebounding the basketball at a much better clip.
And BYU did both of those things at a pretty high clip early in the season in that front-loaded part of the schedule. There was one thing that we could expect watching BYU play basketball, and that was that they would show up, they would play defense, and they would rebound the heck out of the basketball. And then if they figured out enough on offense, they'd find a way to win the games. So those things that we have become so accustomed to just happening are not happening. Rebounding, taking care of the ball, and defending. So, Sean, how do you change that when your team is clearly not in a place that they were mentally, to get them back to that mental place?
I think, honestly, you don't even watch the last couple of games. You don't go back and have film sessions and break down Gonzaga and how they beat you in this area or that area. I think that doesn't serve well. I think it leads to more questions. And we've heard Mark Pope talk in post-game press conferences saying, hey, mentally, we're questioning things. We're overthinking the game. And I do see that on the floor. They're hesitating on shots. I think Molly McCraft did a great job with her sideline report in the game on Saturday, talking about how Alex Barcelo was telling the guys, hey, just let it loose. Just let it fly. Don't worry about if we miss a shot. Let's just play. And I think it gets in your head when you go through a losing streak. And right now it's in their mind. So what I would do is I would go back to some of those previous games where they did a lot of things right. I'd put the Oregon game back in. I'd put the San Diego State game back in, and be like, hey, guys, like, look, when you look at wins against the field, we did some good work in our non-conference to find wins against the field in the NCAA tournament. So we are a good team. Let's remind ourselves of how good we are and what we are capable of doing. And again, with the back-loaded schedule, I would not be surprised if they win at St. Mary's. And the next thing you know, we're going into the WCC tournament with them winning 5 consecutive games. And a lot of the feelings that you're having right now kind of subside and go away. St. Mary's has won 7 games in a row, but let's not forget the Gales have Gonzaga twice. They have BYU on their home floor. I mean, there's some losses that are potentially ahead for St. Mary's at this point in time too. So, it's not looking at the standings and panicking. It's not even looking in your rearview mirror in recent history and going, oh my gosh, woe is us. Walking around campus, hearing people question whether or not you guys are going to make the tournament, fans questioning whether or not you're making the tournament. You got to block all that out. And you got to go back and watch some of the stuff that you've done right this season and realize, wait, guys, we're more than capable of doing it, and reinforce that in your daily practice habits. Like, what at practice are you doing to get more confident? What at practice are we highlighting, or the point of emphasis to allow us to believe that we are the team that we believe we can be? Because I saw it. I mean, I did that Oregon game. I left that Oregon game going, man, BYU was legit. And at 5-1, BYU was a win against Santa Clara from being 6-1 and off to the best start they've ever had in the West Coast Conference.
Yes.
Since then, the tires have fallen off the car, and all you need to do is just bolt them back on. It's not like it's a massive repair. And I know that sounds crazy, especially after the last 4 games, but it's not a massive fix. It's just, guys, we've gotten away from who we are. When we don't turn the ball over, what is our efficiency at the offensive end of the floor versus, obviously, you factor in the lack of efficiency when we turn over. How many points per game are we giving up off of turnovers? How many times are we giving up transition points, whether it's a missed shot or a made shot? And again, those numbers get skewed when you play Gonzaga because of how efficient they are at the offensive end of the floor. But overall, BYU has been great in those areas when they do it right. And so it's just back to getting back to the basics of who they are, having confidence in their identity, having confidence in one another, and believing and trusting that their best basketball is still ahead of them. Because I do believe that. And I know that might sound crazy for some of your fans. but I believe they're going to get right in the next 5 games, and that it would not be a surprise for me to see them playing on Tuesday night in Las Vegas. It wouldn't be. Now, that's not saying because this year's conference is different. I think there's 5 teams that are really, really good in the conference right now. Santa Clara happens to be one of those teams, but the other 4 are projected in the NCAA tournament right now.
Yeah, and speaking of those 4 teams that are projected in, by the way, BYU is still projected in. They're one of the last 4 in, according to your buddy Joe Lunardi. Do you see, after all of this madness leading up into the actual tournament, that the WCC will still have 4 teams in the field?
I do. And I think a large part of that has to do with what's going on around the country in college basketball. I think the Mountain West and the WCC have actually positioned itself very well to get a historically good amount of bids. And part of that was, look, the non-conference success of the WCC was huge. I mean, even a team like Santa Clara, before they suffered injuries and guys were missing games, I mean, pivotal wins against, TCU in the Big 12. I mean, that carries weight still today. But when you look at the Pac-12 and the ACC in particular, the West Coast Conference has more teams ranked in the top 25 currently today than the ACC does. And, that has not been the case, as you know. I mean, usually this time of year, you're talking about 7 or 8 teams coming out of the ACC. The ACC realistically is looking at 4. Well, that means there's 3 more bids that are available for this NCAA tournament. Go to the Pac-12. And yeah, we can talk about how great Arizona is. And UCLA, even after getting swept against Arizona State and Arizona this past weekend, obviously a lock in the NCAA tournament, as is USC. But outside of that, you're now going, okay, Oregon might be playing its way in. That would be a 4th team. But you're not seeing 6 or 7 come out of the Pac-12 this year. It's just not going to happen. And so when you have that, that means, again, more bids are available. They have to put 68 teams in the NCAA tournament. And when you look at the net rankings right now, those top 4 teams, I think that puts them in a great position. And again, I think Santa Clara is going to make some noise down the stretch here. Frankic is back, obviously healthy. Jaylen Williams has been as efficient as any player really in college basketball. When you look at his numbers from the field, from 3-point line, from the free throw line, there's only one other player in the country that has similar numbers and percentages from there that is averaging over 18 points per game. So that's elite company for Jaylen Williams. And Herb Seddick's team is playing with confidence right now. So I think the conference is in really good positioning. And how it's kind of gone down is how you wanted to see it go down. I think if you're a fan of the WCC and you want to see multiple teams get in, you want separation. A lot of time we talk about parity. Well, parity is great, but you need separation. You need a defined line in your conference of these are the good teams, these are the bad teams. That's a defined line this year. It's clear which teams are struggling and which teams are thriving. And I think that separation will help maintain 4 teams in the NCAA tournament field. I think they're going to get it.
Sean, I know what my eyes tell me as it pertains to Gonzaga basketball, and that is that they are, in my opinion, headed for another national championship game appearance. I just don't see any way that Mark Few doesn't have his guys ready to get back to another Final Four, win another game, and then are we headed for an Auburn-Gonzaga national championship match? Is it too early to call something like that? Because it just feels like they are the 2 best teams in college basketball.
I would throw Arizona in there. I mean, we could see a Tommy Lloyd versus Mark Few final, which would be that'd be interesting, made for television drama. But I think that those 3 teams have kind of separated themselves a little bit. Purdue is obviously in the discussion point. I think Kentucky is also getting there too. I think when you look at Oscar Tshiebwe and Ty Washington and Severe Wheeler and Kellen Grady, Keon Brooks, they've got a lot of things going right now in Lexington. So I think it's going to be really good. I think there's about 8 teams that can win a national championship.
Wow.
Gonzaga, I think their best basketball, ironically, is still ahead of them. And I don't think that they've maximized their full potential yet, which is a scary thought, especially when you look at how efficient and how dynamic they were on Saturday. But with Chet Holmgren really figuring out where his positioning is on the floor, where he can be successful and how he can exploit mismatches or his skill set and utilize his skill set, I think part of that is him feeling more comfortable. The other part is Mark Few understanding, like, okay, this is where you want it. Okay, we'll get you there. And Drew Timme has been more than willing to kind of like relinquish a little bit of what his dominant role has been to allow Chet to thrive. And I think that that's going to bode well down the stretch for Drew in particular, but also this team. Julian Strawther Strother, as we saw on Saturday, was sensational. I mean, in any other game, we're talking about Julian Strother post-game. We're not talking about Chet. But Chet had the numbers he had, and it makes it like impossible almost to even mention Julian Strother with how good he played, or Andrew Nembhard and how well he played in that game. But I think Nolan Hickman and Anton Watson are going to be the key for them to potentially win a national championship. They need production coming off the bench. There will be games where some of those guys get into foul trouble or they're not performing well, and you need a spark. And I think that there's been glimpses for Nolan Hickman. I think he's going to improve a lot in the next month. And I think Mark's going to try to find spots for him to play more because he knows that he's going to need that depth in the NCAA tournament. And I think Anton Watson has done exactly what you would want for him in the last 6 games. He's averaging over 10 points per game. So you've got 6 guys in the last 6 games averaging better than 10 points per contest. That balance makes it a very difficult scout, especially when you think about how well they pass the ball. I think Auburn's an interesting team because Jabari Smith still, to me, is the number 1 pick in the draft. I love his frame. I love how he can shoot the ball. Walker Kessler underneath in his length. But the big concern I have for them is sometimes their shot selection gets in their way. And when shots aren't falling for them, it becomes problematic, like we saw against Georgia on Saturday. They almost lost the game to a team that has a net ranking lower than 200, and you're the nation's number 1 team. That's not anticipated by any stretch of the imagination that should happen, but it almost did. And I think that they've got to clean things up. You want them to play free because that's how Bruce Pearl has had success. But you also want to make sure that the quality of shot you're getting is right, because in the NCAA tournament, as we all know, there's going to be a game where your shots aren't falling. How do you win? And when the competition is a lot better than what Georgia is going to bring to the table this year, and you're in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, you've got to find a way to allow your defense to shine through and be able to adjust and change the quality of shot that you're getting at the offensive end.
Sean Farnham is a man of many talents. At the top of that list is analyzing college basketball. And what many might not know, Sean, is you got a pretty good singing voice, too. I hope all BYU fans are singing as they celebrate another trip to the NCAA tournament, and that you are right, that their best basketball is ahead of them.
I believe that it is, and I believe in Mark Pope. I really do. I think Mark is one of the great coaches on the West region of the United States. I think his skill development stuff is great. I think the way that he cares for his kids is elite. And I trust in Mark. And I think that's part of the reason why I believe that this team will find its way again, is because I've seen it all too often that this coaching staff has figured it out. And this is a test unlike any other. You can't make excuses. But the losses that they had on the interior earlier this season, it's still showing up today, and those aren't going to go away. But you can't use that as an excuse moving forward. If you want to make the NCAA tournament, you got to find a way to get around it. And I have confidence that they will.
Sean, fantastic stuff. I know that we have a 3-foot-long maple bar donut known as a Cougar Tail. Once again, you know it well, waiting for you next time you're back in Provo.
Yeah, it'll be next season. I'm not back for the rest of this year in Provo, but I do have BYU a couple times on the road, finishing the season out before we get to Las Vegas. Maybe you'll bring one to Vegas with you.
I can do that. We can arrange that, my friend.
It probably won't be as fresh as the ones that I got on Saturday, but it's still just phenomenal.
It's still delicious. Sean, thanks for the time, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Anytime.
ESPN Sean Farnham with Spencer Linton yesterday. He called a shot on Santa Clara right there, which is pretty interesting. He said, I think they're going to surprise some people.
He's the Cam Mellor of college basketball. Just calling a shot. Cam called a shot on Zach Wilson.
That's exactly right. I love Sean. I think he's great. It did turn into Gonzaga Sports Nation there for a minute.
Look, he is great. And he's one of those guys that just absorbs all things college basketball. Yes. So I trust his takes.
I would say he's one of the biggest voices on the West Coast.
Agreed, 100%.
Nationally as well.
Here's the thing, though. This is where we missed the mark on this. If you're going to bring up that he's a great singer, we need to have him singing.
Yeah.
We needed to hear the voice.
Can't tease it like that.
Because maybe next time he does come, he can have a Cougar Tail and he can sing with like vocal point.
I want to hear it. Oh, nice. He's that good?
I don't know. Maybe we don't know. All right. Coming up.
We'll find
Mark Pope, mean tweets. It's gold, Jerry.
Yes, it is. No soup for you. And our Letterman's jackets making a comeback. Are they? Like we talked about it earlier this week, but are they? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork offers a large inventory of Ford vehicles, including a selection of cars and trucks, providing a range of transportation choices. From the Ford Fusion sedan and the Edge crossover SUV to a range of pickups including the F-150. Each product line comes with options to enhance performance, comfort, and safety. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Family, if you're looking for something new to watch, stop scrolling and start streaming. BYU TV has a ton of great options to binge together. From bold adventure to family drama and even a little fun, there's something for everyone. Binge entire series, experience all the feels, immerse in non-stop intrigue, and treat yourself to unexpected turns. Think you know BYU TV? We're just getting started.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by Maersk, enabling global trade for a growing world.
BYU Hoops looks to get back on the winning track as they travel to LMU. You can join me for pregame coverage tomorrow night, 10 Eastern time with Cougar Pregame Live. Then Greg Wrubell, Mark Durant, the guys will have the call from Los Angeles at 11 Eastern on BYU Radio and the app.
Late one. He is Jason. I am Jarom. This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show, you can follow us on social media, BYU Sports Nation specifically, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it. Good Whip Round is presented by Maersk, an integrated container logistics company enabling global trade for a growing world.
Talked a lot about the losses last night in the West Coast Conference. The bigger surprise to you was what? Was it Portland over San Francisco or Santa Clara over St. Mary's?
Definitely Portland over San Francisco because Portland has been a team that's struggling. Yeah. Big win. Santa Clara is good. We saw them beat BYU 2 weeks ago. They beat up on TCU and Stanford in the non-conference. Let's go.
Yeah, the answer is Portland over San Francisco. Did not see that one coming at all.
Okay, Saturday, Dax Milne wore a Letterman jacket to the BYU versus Gonzaga game. Then he tweeted he received a box with a Washington Commanders with a Letterman jacket. Shep, are you still rocking a Letterman's jacket?
As a matter of fact, I am. And proud to say that it still fits.
Oh!
Check this out.
This is your high school Letterman jacket?
This is my high school Letterman's jacket.
Look at that.
Kearns Cougars still fits.
Were you, how many pounds ago was this jacket?
I don't know, maybe 15.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
And that 15, let's be honest, muscle now. So
pure, undefiled muscle.
Kearns Cougars.
Kearns Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Yeah, go Cougs.
Look, it follows me everywhere.
You look amazing.
Thank you.
You want to pop the collar or no?
I'm not a pop the collar guy, but I'm telling you, this thing is heavy. I forgot how heavy this is.
Oh.
I'm going to wear this the rest of the show.
Marty, what's going on in the future? Why is everything so heavy?
Yeah, I'm going to wear this the rest of the show.
Do it.
All right.
Look amazing.
Speaking of jackets, would you wear this Evan Troy jacket on BYU TV? Check this out.
Yeah. 100%. From last night's coach's show, Evan Troy just crushed it. He wore this a couple years ago when he did. We don't have the picture.
Oh, we don't have the pic. You're gonna have to trust us.
Yeah, I'd wear it. 100%.
If I'm remembering the jacket correctly, I probably would not wear it. But that's just me. That's my own style.
Well, you're already wearing a jacket.
I am. I'm wearing my jacket. Yeah. This is warm.
Yeah? You're going to
really
be burning up by the end?
Probably. All right, coming up, a rise and shout out to some early madness in the WCC.
And Mark Pope reads mean tweets. Let's go anyway. This is BYU Sports Nation with the Kearns Coug, Shep.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
My name is Spencer Finnegan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. During my sophomore year, I got married to my sweetheart, Mary, and there's tons of unexpected expenses when it comes to marriage. We were looking for scholarships. I found the replenishment grant, and my local alumni chapter gave me a grant to help me focus in on school. I'm so excited to, now that I've graduated, give back to those students that are coming to BYU in the future.
On the basic level, we offer transportation. We carry 4 wheels, tailgates, and a place to rest your rump. Beyond that, we provide adventures, opportunities, and jobs well done. So perhaps our favorite offering is our full line of trucks, including the new Nissan Titan. Right off I-15, Tim Daly Nissan Southtown and the popular full-size Nissan Titan. Think Nissan, think Tim Daly.
You're right there. Take it in. How's it going?
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
20th ranked BYU women's basketball returns home on Thursday to host Pepperdine. Coverage begins at 9 Eastern live on BYU TV and the app.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. Last night on BYU Basketball with Mark Pope. Mark Pope brought his own mean tweets to read, and this is what it sounded like and looked like.
Because what I've done is I asked our GAs who are going to be on.
Yes,
Thank
you
you.
did. Oh, look at this.
Thank you. Okay.
He'll be coming back later.
He'll be coming back later.
This isn't his only appearance tonight.
If the show makes it that far. You don't understand. I am so nervous right now.
You think you're nervous?
I am so nervous.
Okay. He just brought in a mystery envelope. And,
yes.
Yeah.
So what I had to do, so, you know, Leanne's late night talk show person. She grew up in the business.
Yeah, has some background there.
So we're fans of these mean tweets. And so we thought, you see sweat? Yeah. Like it's happening. We thought, what better time? You know, maybe I'm not really a huge social media guy, so I don't know if there's been mean tweets all the time, but I'm like, there's got to be some mean tweets after losing 4 games. So we're going to read them.
Wow. They've been printed out and they're in the envelope?
So here's the deal. I told Evan, I told my 2 GAs who are coming on later to account for themselves. I said, I need you guys to scour the World Wide Web. Do we call it that anymore?
Sure.
To scour all of social media and find the most brutal, meanest tweets about me that they could find.
And you're going to read these?
I have not seen them.
Okay.
Greg has not seen them.
I've not seen them.
And I'm going to tell you, the first one I'm totally disappointed with, actually. Let's hope we're doing better than that. You guys have seen this on, who does it? Jimmy Kimmel, maybe? So they have people come on and read the mean tweets
about themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is from Micah at LMass Micah. Am I legally allowed to say that?
Sure, yeah.
This one's soft. It says, maybe Pope isn't as great of a coach as we thought. I hope we're going to do better. That's not.
It's kind of mean. Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
This is better. This is from Blue Oyster DVP at Blue Oyster DVP.
Yeah, by the way, before you read these handles, like, just self-edit before you do that. But
oh, yeah.
So far, yeah.
Oh, I am,
okay.
Yes. Pope, the at BYU coach, is a crybaby, too. 4 straight losses, hashtag Provo. Fine. Okay. Ooh, this is getting better. Anya with 2 A's at BlackZag05. Mark Pope looks like a door-to-door salesman who's been on the road for too many years. Better? Okay. Wait. This is Cosmo for life. That can't be a real Cosmo, is it? Cosmo for life, All-American. I don't know what that means. Welp, Pope went from hot new girl to not so great in just 2 weeks. True, that's true. From dangerous, these are a little soft. I'm gonna crush the GAs when they get in here. There's got to be worse than this. Dangerous, All-American. We look like a lower level WCC team. Just embarrassing. Pope looks clueless. Okay, and the last one.
These aren't really complimentary, you know. I think.
I thought it would be like have more meat. All right, will you tell Ev and Brad they got one shot? When they come out here, they have to get a real one. These are like soft potatoes. I need a real tough one, and I don't understand this one. Yeah, Lee said, uh-oh. So this is from the Sock Gnome All-American, and it says, unfortunately, Pope has fallen into Coach Klein territory. I hope he can find ... his way out.
Waterboy.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, I like it. I'm actually disappointed.
Oh.
Sorry, guys. I thought we would have some real heat in here. So we're going to give those guys, you know, they work fast. They'll work fast. Hopefully they can get some good juice in here.
There's also a possibility that people just still kind of like you.
No, I guarantee you that there's something juicy out there. And so I'm actually super disappointed. They got to bring it.
I love that he did that. And he was disappointed that it wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, he'd prepared himself for a certain level of mean, and I don't think any of those reached it.
For those who don't know, his wife, Leanne, was David Letterman's executive assistant for several years and worked at ESPN prior to that for a little while. It's pretty interesting. You can hear a lot of that story on the Deep Blue podcast I did with him, parts 1 and 2. But
two-parter.
I haven't even reached the he got to BYU part. It's been everything leading up to that. It's been a crazy journey for them. But, yeah, Mark Pope, amazing personality, of course.
All right, coming up, we hear from you in Voice of the Nation.
And today's Rise and Shouts. And in case you missed it, you have no idea why Shep's in a Letterman jacket. We're not going to explain why. We're going to break. This is BYU Sports Nation.
And now, introducing your Mountain America All-Stars. Out of BYU, Alex Barcelo and Shaylee Gonzalez.
Thanks for the warm welcome.
So, is this where we get the BYU card?
But of course. The only place you can.
This is really cool.
Yeah, but mine's better.
No way.
Get your BYU card from Mountain America today. It's perfect for students, alumni, and super fans.
I watch BYU TV because it has good programming for all family members, aligns to my values.
BYU TV really does help me with my parenting. It helps me show my kids good examples of the way that we should live. No matter what you watch or listen, you always leave feeling better.
All of us together.
Follow the ups and downs of elite young gymnasts in an exclusive behind-the-scenes look as they twist, flip, and bounce their way to the podium. See the commitment, effort, and mindset it takes for these competitors to rule their sport on Gym Stars, on BYU TV, or on the free app.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
Get that out of here. BYU Sports Nation, always available on demand via the free BYU TV and BYU Radio app.
Or you can always download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast. While you're there, subscribe, rate, and review.
Our question of the day is this. After last night's West Coast Conference upsets, Portland beat San Francisco, Santa Clara beat St. Mary's. Do you think BYU will get a top 4 seed in the West Coast Conference tournament? Our elite voice of the day is presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Ben Peterson on Twitter. I think there's a chance, but they need to win the next 5. I think we are learning that the West Coast Conference might have more competitive teams than we thought at the start of the year. Too bad the upsets will just be a reason to keep more WCC teams out of the tournament. How many bids do you feel like the league is going to get on Selection Sunday?
I think at most right now 3.
I agree. 4 feels unrealistic.
I think there was a chance for 4, but now I think with the way that the conference has played out so far, and now the fact that we're getting towards the end goes back to what we were talking about. All these teams are now facing each other, and one team's going to get a bump, the other teams are going to start to slide because they're playing each other. I just don't see 4 being realistic anymore.
Here's the way it could happen. Someone or maybe multiple pick off Gonzaga, because then you have that massive win to add to the resume. And then if you're top 4 and there are other the tournament selection committee, we know this from Tom being on it, looks at other teams in the tournament. Right. Did you beat them? There's value in that. So
what is the likelihood that Gonzaga loses a game?
0.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the only way.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. It's happened before. But this version of Gonzaga is its best version of itself. Like of the past, 5 or 6 years.
And that's saying
some
something.
Top 5 teams.
Yes.
I'm not saying this is their greatest team ever. I think the team 2 years ago was. But they're legit. Like number 1, number 2, they're probably going to the Final Four again. Like you don't pick them off on a Thursday night at Santa Clara very, very often. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens with the next couple of weeks, though. But, of course, it does hinge on BYU winning the next 5. If BYU doesn't win in Moraga, I don't think BYU can get in that large. It just doesn't feel like BYU is going to have enough oomph at the end of the year to get in. Maybe they do barely.
See, I still think they can. It obviously makes things much more difficult.
Here's why I know. If they don't win in Moraga, even if they win in Moraga, the chances of being on the other side of the bracket from Gonzaga is slim. So if you don't and you're on Gonzaga's side, what's the win that's really going to help you at the end of the year that you didn't get in Moraga? Santa Clara or San Francisco as the 4-5 in the quarters? Maybe you get a quad 2 in the quarters, but probably not. That's probably reserved for whoever you're playing in the semis, and that would be Gonzaga. So that's my concern there is I want to be on the other side of the bracket to get a semifinal bump against a St. Mary's or San Francisco. But the chances of being the 2 or the 3 just feel like it's going to be difficult.
Right. BYU, though, should absolutely, when it's all said and done, be top 4.
Yeah. Okay, today's Rise and Shout, presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. Evan Troy's jacket.
We've got it.
We mentioned it earlier. It's just insane. It's just crazy. Here it is.
There it is.
That is like the most psychedelic jacket I've ever seen. And, of course, Shep wearing his Letterman jacket from
Current Time.
Thanks to today's guest, Sean Farnham.
Conversation continues 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Use hashtag BYUSN.
Jason, I'm Jarom. Shout out to Brandon Bonner. See you tomorrow for more BYUSN. Go Cougs! Letterman jacket, baby.